Senator Morgan, thank you for joining us.
Greetings, neighbor. Well, go on there.
Well,
good
I'm
to be
happy.
on with you, my brother. And let me say good evening to all your viewers, both in Jamaica and around the world, because we know of the reach of your platform. You're on many different channels in terms of TikTok, YouTube, Patreon, X, whole heap of things, a crocus bag of things. And that's good because as many avenues as we can find to reach the Jamaican people and interface with them, it is always a good thing. So thanks for having me, my brother, and I'm delighted to be on.
Yes, sir, all the way to South Africa and Australia. Senator Morgan, again, thank you for joining us. There are several major issues currently shaping public discussions, from questions arising out of the recent Auditor General's report to the government's recovery response following the hurricane. We appreciate your time, sir, and we want to have a very candid and constructive discussion on those matters this evening. Let's begin with the Auditor General report, because it has generated significant public debate. We have heard strong criticism from the opposition, PNP, that sections of the media surrounding the issue of the roughly 1.4 billion in donation and how those funds were treated and accounted for. At the same time, the government's response, including explanations that you have personally helped to articulate, is that the administration has already committed and spent in excess of 67 billion on recovery. For viewers trying to separate the politics from the facts, put the entire matter into perspective for us. What do you believe is being misunderstood or misrepresented about the Auditor General's findings?
All right, I thank you for the opportunity, neighbor. And the truth of the matter is that I don't come to the conversation, nor does the government, from the standpoint of arrogance, where we're not acknowledging that the headlines that would have reverberated since about Tuesday or so of this week would have evoked a certain natural reaction in people, which is why we're here to do what we're doing, and which is why I myself would have been at the forefront of the government's response and unpacking of the observations contained in the Auditor General's report. So now, if a person is sitting at home, whether they are consuming social media or traditional media, neighbor, and they hear that, boy, only 1.8% of the money that the government gets to help people following the passage of Hurricane Melissa has been spent, you can understand and appreciate that that headline and visceral,
emotive. It is
emotion. Exactly. The kind of visceral emotion it will evoke, it will naturally cause persons to feel that. But people have been, suffering, as it were. People have been subsisting on the tarpaulins. Why would they have held the money and so on? So what we want to point out to the public first and foremost is that the donations that were received from persons who are Jamaicans and non-Jamaicans, both here in Jamaica and across the world, are resources that the government of Jamaica, led by Andrew Holness, is appreciative of. We're grateful of the injection of support and the signal of solidarity that it underscores and speaks to. Now, with those donations, we as an administration, we are mindful, neighbor, of the context within which Jamaica operate, and we would not want those donated funds to be brought into disrepute and even have the specter of misuse, corruption, or unfaithful stewardship clouding it up. So now, the determination was made that in respect of the donated funds, what has now been revealed as 1.44 billion Jamaican dollars would be used, neighbor, on what we consider as an administration as tangible initiatives that we can, at the end of the day, point to assure the donors and stakeholders across the world that this is what the administration used the money that you donated to do. So we determined that we would use some of those resources to assist and offset the cost of the government-assisted roof repair program, which is different that is separate and apart from the roofs program. So the government-directed roof repairs program is a program which sees the JDF leading the charge, and Jamaica also thankfully and fortuitously benefited from the support and partnership of other militaries around the world, not least Ghana, Rwanda, Guyana, and I think there was at least one other. It may have been Ethiopia. Now, those military outfit, in addition to the JDF, went around rural Jamaica, Western Jamaica in particular, and they sought to effect roof repairs to structures that could take the roof repairs. Because as you can appreciate, there are some persons who would have had displacement to their households, but the structure, the substructure would not have been in a state where it could have accommodated the repairs in that particular initiative that was undertaken, that government-directed roof repairs program. So as at today's date, there are some 400 plus roofs and 400 plus dwellings that would have benefited from that particular intervention, and that is to be lauded and appreciated. So separate and apart from the government-directed roof repairs program, the government has also earmarked, via ODPEM of course, some $600 million to treat with the preparation of the base, the concrete bases, neighbor, that would be used to mount or erect the modular housing solutions that have since been coming into country. And we gather just under 1,000 of them are in country as we speak. The intent is to have just under 3,000 of them landed in Jamaica. I gather in the weeks and months ahead, we will be up to just under 3,000 of those modular housing solutions, which are semi-permanent housing solutions that you cannot just put down arbitrarily or willy-nilly. You have to have them erected for, you know, it's best practice and commendable and advisable that they are mounted on appropriately prepared concrete bases. So the money that the government got,
you're not putting them back on stilts.
There you go, my brother. Not no little, you know, less than sturdy and inappropriate stills, or, as I said, less than sturdy substructures or bases. Because what we want to do, and this is one of the points that the Prime Minister has made. It's one of the points that others in the administration, like myself, continue to emphasize, and that is, based on where Jamaica is situated in terms of just the physical dynamics, we know that it is not a matter of if, but more so a matter of when. So we are within a location that makes us prone to the vagaries of adverse weather, for example, hurricanes and storms. And so it wouldn't make sense for us coming out of Hurricane Beryl in 2024 and subsequently Hurricane Melissa in 2025 to be just doing things in a business as usual, perfunctory way. So what we have decided to do is to focus attention on building resilience, which is what NaRRA is largely about. We will come to that further in the discussion, but we're treating with this very important thing up front. So resilience building, neighbor, is an area that the government is focusing attention on, because our tagline is that we're seeking to build Jamaica forward better.
Rather than build back.
So we're not just merely building, because building back means you just put up and bitch up a thing and put up a structure. What we're seeking to do is to build forward better, because whatever the government does, it is well thought out, it is appropriately considered, it is guided by evidence and research and appropriate technical guidance. And that is one of the things we want people to understand. So we did not want to use the donated funds, that $1.44 billion donated, on things that we would not be able to tangibly point to as an administration. And that is why the $600 million, as I said earlier, was earmarked to support the whole business of the modular housing solutions, and remaining aspects of it will be doing similar recovery-related activities that the administration can point to the donor community and say, see there, this is the before, this is the after, this is the impact that your support and intervention has had. Because as we speak, neighbor, in central Westmoreland, a community, a settlement is being prepared to situate persons who would have been domiciled and subsisting, unfortunately, for a protracted period in respective shelters. So those persons are going to be located. I gather it may be upwards of 40 or 50 of them, and the government looks forward to that because, as you know, while people would have been displaced as a result of the passage of Hurricane Melissa, it is good to preserve and restore our Jamaican brothers and sisters to a sense of dignity, my brethren. So that is what we're prioritizing.
That's fantastic. I thank you for that. But Senator, there are some people, including supporters of the party, who have argued that while the government's response to the Auditor General's report was detailed and helpful, it also came across to some as reactive or defensive in some regard. And Senator, I'll say this personally. Many people felt that your response added important clarity and context to the discussion. But the criticism remains that the information was available. Perhaps it should already have been proactively placed in the public's domain before the controversy escalated. Did you see Julian's piece today?
Yes, I saw it, and I want to...
How do you respond to that concern? And does the government believe that there are lessons to be learned about the transparency, communication, timing, and how major national expenditures are explained to the public?
You have touched on an important issue, and you, at the back end just now, neighbor, went precisely where I, would have gone initially in responding by simply saying this. The findings of that Auditor General report would have captured the news cycle. It would have occupied column inches of newspapers and indeed the discussion of many persons on social media and elsewhere in the country, right? And you are correct. To the extent that the Auditor General undertook a particular body of work, and to the extent that the government, which has superintendence over the stewardship of the resources, and of course the response by government to the passage of Hurricane Melissa, we, from a communications and just public information standpoint, as we seek to bring the Jamaican people into our confidence and retain that confidence so that persons like Julian Robinson, as he sought to do today, and others do not seek to maneuver and exploit any aspect of information deficit or trust deficit, right?
Yes.
So looking back at it, it is a very teachable and instructive moment that preparing the wicket and just helping to form the narrative and leveling with the Jamaican people, because the administration, neighbor, has nothing to hide. These are funds sitting and situated where the Jamaican people can be assured that they are being used for the tangible benefit and long-lasting value added to our Jamaican brothers and sisters who were seeking to restore to some semblance of dignity and normalcy consequent on their dislocation brought about by Hurricane Melissa. So as a communicator, you can appreciate that I, for one, would want an ideal situation where we were ahead of the proverbial, train in this regard, so as to be able to prepare and indicate to people. So I will not be speaking to or divulging certain strategic takeaways from this moment, but suffice it to say, we know that we have a political party on the one hand and government on the other hand. And the truth of the matter is that it is always useful when you can have coordination and cohesion between the two, so that ultimately the people of Jamaica stand to benefit. Because what we as a political party are assuring the Jamaican people of is that we're not in the business of misusing funds that come into our coffers as a country, and you can appreciate that we are now in a new era of management and accounting for public funds, which is why we're having the very discussion we're having today, because we would have seen successive Auditor General reports, particularly over the life of previous PNP administrations, which would have spoken to massive corruption, massive misappropriation, and massive loss. You can think of such things as the NetServe Solutra scandal.
Too many to mention.
You can exactly too many to mention, but you can think of Operation Pride, per the PNP of a previous dispensation. So where we are now is that when the 1.44 billion comes into Jamaica, there are certain protocols from a public financial management standpoint that have to ensue. And what that simply means is that for the funds to be expended by ODPEM, they need authorization so to do, and that is important for accounting and audit-related purposes, because ultimately, when ODPEM does what it does, the government, for budgetary and law-related reasons, such as the provisions of the Financial Administration and Audit Act, you need to be able to appropriately account for and point to the sums that came into ODPEM consequent on the Support Jamaica Hurricane Melissa Relief Platform, that 1.44 billion, and what it was used to do. And what we're assuring the people of Jamaica are two things.
Yes.
We are utilizing the 1.44 billion Jamaican dollars for tangible and demonstrably evident value lasting and value adding initiatives, because when a man gets a housing solution or a plot of land on which they are settled and have the basis erected, it is something that can endure for years ahead. And it is not like a care package where you consume the items in that care package and you're not able to point donors to say, listen, see the care package there in the toilet or in the sewer system. But just before you come in, neighbor, the second point, and an important point in all of this, is for the public to understand that while $1.44 billion came in the form of donations, and of course would have been in the account of ODPEM, there are things that were being done and sums that were being expended, neighbor, by the same Holness-led government that is exponentially in excess of the 1.44 billion. In my press release yesterday and in various infographics that the JLP's communications task force would have disseminated in recent days, yes, or should I say in recent hours, the government has spent just under $70 billion, or at least
under $70 billion, sir?
We have earmarked just under 70 billion. Now, so just to be clear, whereas 1.44 billion is with ODPEM, right? At least 98% of that 1.44 billion. Things been going separate and apart from that.
So the 1.4 has not prevented the government from executing its responsibility to the people? Precisely.
It could not have, because the place now would have burned down if things never did go on, meaning a crocus bag of things. And what the public, what I'm using this platform, neighbor, to convey to the people of Jamaica is that there are things that the government would have directed and done. And thankfully, in a show of national solidarity and purpose, we have had the injection and the goodwill of Jamaicans up and down the country in relation to their own personal pouring into the relief and recovery effort. Because you can recall, neighbor, that many Jamaicans loaded up them vehicle, whether crisp vehicle or not so crisp vehicle, and took supplies down to Western Jamaica, myself included, and many of us in the government did that out of our personal resources and personal sacrifice, because we have family all across Jamaica. I myself have family down in Western Jamaica, and separate and apart from the personal family motivation, we have reached out in good Jamaican tradition and fashion to persons who were displaced, persons who were hurting following the passage of Hurricane Melissa. And from the government standpoint, just about $1 billion Jamaican dollars, neighbor, was spent to provide and distribute care packages. And those things can support
$1 billion, that's $1,000 million for care packages.
$1,000 million in general. And if you put it into context, that $1 billion on care package alone is almost equal to the 1.44 billion that people like Julian Robinson and others would have sought to stand on a soapbox about. So there's the care package element. There is also the resources that would have been provided to the respective members of parliament to assist in the whole relief and recovery effort. So the same Nikisha Birchall, who you say a jump and prance, the same Ian Hales, who's trying to rip into and criticize the Spark program in Central Westmoreland, the same Dwayne Vaz, who each up in a bar like Barfly instead of receiving donations from one of the persons intervening in his constituency, so much so that that person alleged to have been set upon by some constituents of his, right? There is also Dayton Campbell.
Yes.
He too would have been in receipt of the $10 million plus, because them get care packages, for issue to people. Them get the $10 million plus they would have gotten an allocation before Hurricane Melissa hit in order to help prepare in terms of drain cleaning and just creating water runoff facilitation so that we could mitigate any likelihood of drought and the impact of any such drought. So all of them get the money. Ian Hills, that's why I call the register, I do the roll call. Heather Miller Bennett, and of course, Andrea Perkis. The whole of them to include the JLP MPs as well. Because as a government, we do across the board. So JLP MPs when get and PNP MPs when get. And I'm coming down the line with you. I'm going to allow you, but I'm going to come back down the line with you with some of the other things that billions of dollars were used to do. But you had an interjection just now.
Well, thank you. I want to put it to you, Senator, that there is no question that many regional and international observers, including institutions like the World Bank, have commended aspect of the government's response and recovery effort. The World Bank calls it world leading. Yet, despite that, there still has been sustained criticism from the opposition. MPs, you just mentioned some of them, and the opposition leader himself, who argue that the government's response has fallen short in key areas. How would you assess the government's overall handling of the crisis? And what do you believe the critics are either overlooking or getting wrong?
No, I'm delighted that you posed that question, neighbor, because one of the things I, as a member of the administration, and indeed the government as a team, as a collective, is delighted about is that when it concerns or where it concerns the state of Enterprise Jamaica, there is evidence, right, that is incontrovertible. Because remember, neighbor can always get up and sing theme tune. Marlon Morgan can always get up and sing theme Sankey. Mark Golding can always get up and say what him feel for say. See? Julian Robinson, as he did today, can say what him feel for say. But what distills all of that, what all of that comes back down to, is what I would like to describe as, neighbor, the incontrovertible, objective reality that stands before us. In other words, the sums expended and what they were expended on in the government's response to the passage of Hurricane Melissa is just incontrovertible. As an administration, my portfolio minister, Senator Dr. the Honorable Dana Morris Dixon, she presented in an open and transparent way before the Jamaican people on about 9 or so consecutive days as the system approached and after the system. And for several weeks and days thereafter, we were in front of the Jamaican people at various special post-cabinet press briefings or special press briefings. So that is how open and transparent we are as a government. That is how committed we are to interfacing with and reporting to, because of the people of Jamaica, we're bosses, my brother. We are not the bosses, we are the servants of the people, which is why we have stood in front of them and we have essentially been accounting for our stewardship. And we had journalists coming to the press conference, several of them, to include those who sought to ask questions about vultures, or should I say John Crows. You follow me? And I trust you'll remember that. That's how open and answerable we have been to the people. In terms of in terms of the opposition's criticism, we know that the parliamentary opposition will always try to weaponize the displacement and the suffering being endured by some of our Jamaican brothers and sisters. We know that they will always try to be politically opportunistic. And one of the things that I am personally disappointed with is that it appears to me, it has been clear to me, neighbor, that instead of using and focusing more of their attention as members of parliament on directing their constituents to and pointing their constituents to windows of assistance and opening up avenues to assist their people, they have simply been in the business of either peddling falsehoods, or, of course, just trying to exploit the hardship of the people. In other words, Nikisha Burchell, for example, stood up with one of her constituents. I think the man named Bongo. Don't quote me on that. However, the very location that Bongo had his shelter, I gather it is situated on Jamaica Railway Corporation property. And Nikisha Burchell was there parading with Bongo saying that he not see nobody from the Ministry of Labour for come to we call the word assessment at his place. How could the government go on government property to do an assessment in respect of persons who would have been there clearly as an informal settler? As members of parliament, you have to provide leadership, neighbor.
Yes, sir.
As a member of the political class, you have to be above the board and sober enough to be able to make representation and advocate on behalf of your constituent, such that your constituent is directed and pointed to avenues of assistance. Because who knows, that gentleman Bongo, and I don't know whether he's JLP or PNP, and he could be no P for all I care. He is a Jamaican just like the rest of us. And when I see him, I see an elderly man who he conveyed that he does his farming. I see him as a well-intended man and perhaps somebody who could qualify for the government's social pension, whether, to the extent that he is age 75 or older. So that's how the members of parliament should be advocating and directing their people to the avenues and windows of assistance, rather than just trying to come and grandstand at press conferences. Because as I said in my contribution the other day to the NaRRA debate, the PNP held a press conference on a given day. I think it was it the 26th or 29th of January? They had a press conference in the morning to bemoan the slow pace at which recovery was taking place. And then Mark Golding got up in Parliament that same afternoon, just about 4.5 hours later, and said that we need to put NaRRA to a joint select committee. The thing moved slow, as they articulated at their press conference, meaning too slow for their liking. Yet you come just 4 hours after that to come and say, we need to put NaRRA to a joint select committee, which you knew and which you are fully aware would only put more time on the clock. They are seized of that. So as I'm saying to your viewers and our listeners this evening, neighbor, where it concerns the hard evidence and the objective reality, it is chalk to cheese where the government is concerned relative to the criticism and the salvos leveled at us by the opposition. Because when you consider the ratings agencies, reputable entities,
and the government's ability to mobilize resources.
Precisely. Fitch, Standard & Poor's, and Moody's, those entities have all reaffirmed Jamaica's ratings, and I believe one of them has even gone further to bump us up a notch in terms of ratings. So if you just think about where Enterprise Jamaica is at present, we were batter bruised by a Category 5 hurricane, and even in the wake of that batter bruising, the black eye and all that we had coming out of the passage of that system, we were still able to get our rating agencies, reputable entities around the world. These are not people who have a JLP membership card or a PNP membership card. These are reputable ratings agencies all around the world that were able to look at Enterprise Jamaica and say, listen, these guys are credit worthy. Because they have built-in fiscal buffers, and it was the actions of the government, including the gray matter of former Finance Minister Nigel Clark, that has taken us to where we are, because we were building up the capacity when we did not have adverse weather events, so that now that we have adverse weather events, we are not falling, we haven't fallen flat on our laurels, because we had a catastrophe bond. We have created what is called a National Natural Disaster Reserve Fund, which is separate and apart from our disaster risk fund and our disaster fund and our disaster risk financing framework. So we had fiscal buffers, which is what enabled us to buy care packages, to buy food items and do up care packages. It is what allowed us to be able to allocate resources to the NWA, some 5 billion of them, to do the clearing of roads and so on, and repair of roads following the impact of hurricane. Because, we had a lot of landslide, neighbor.
Yes.
So you had to treat with those, and it's the National Works Agency that would have helped with that. Of course, following the hurricane, the restoration of water and electricity would have been important considerations, right? And what did the government do? Whereas the PNP, based on their arguments, neighbor, would have facilitated what the JPSCO was requesting, because the JPSCO was requesting a 15-year extension on their existing license so that they could, in their view, go to market and borrow the money to bring linesmen into country and accelerate the pace of restoration of electricity. We, thanks to the leadership and stridency of Energy Minister Darrell Vaz, we said, no way, no day. The people of Jamaica are going to have a negotiated and new electricity license come 2027, when this existing one expires and a new one has to take its footing. We have to have new terms. So that was non-negotiable for us as a government, and that is why we made available the 150 million United States dollars, which has the Jamaican equivalent, neighbor, being 24 billion Jamaican dollars. So Julian comes out and do a video about $1.44 billion, when the government, in order to ensure that electricity could be restored to Darliston, Betheltown. Up to this past Monday, I was in St. Leonard's, yes, near Nikisha's Mount Pelion, and places like Negril and elsewhere, Lacovia, Magati, you name it, up in Ellerslie Retirement, all of these places, Jointwood and so on. The government, by way of loaning that 24 billion Jamaican dollars, which is 150 million United States dollars, to the JPSCO, saw linesmen coming into Jamaica with all the heavy equipment, with all the poles and so on that would have been necessary to erect those poles and run back the line them, and do so in a relatively expedited manner, so that we did not have our communities being marooned from an electricity access standpoint, and they had light restored, because the government, neighbor, recognized and appreciated that the restoration of electricity is what enables communities to bounce back and come back from the event. Because when you have electricity, the barbershop can start up back again. The restaurant can store back their meat and become a going concern again. The wholesale, the gas station, the hardware, the haberdashery, all of these micro, small, and medium-sized entities, and large entities as well, can come back into meaningful production, and do so without the costly element of generator operated and generator provided power, because some persons were able to rely on generators and get generators in place, and that helped us in terms of resilience. However, we all know that you have to buy the diesel fuel and pour it into the generator, and that is a very, very costly endeavor, because we operate schools, and schools utilize generators. So as a ministry and as a parliamentary secretary, I am seized of the kind of bill that we're talking about when we talk about generator supplied power, and that is why it was important, neighbor, to get the electricity restored, which is what we use $24 billion to do, in addition to all of the other things: support to healthcare, billions of dollars; restoration of water system, billions of dollars; and of course, as I said before, we would have spent considerably on getting our schools cleaned up following the event, and we are repairing schools. 692 schools have been damaged as a result of the passage of Hurricane Melissa, and we're doing roof repair and other infrastructure plant repairs at the schools in order to foster resilience going forward. Because as we said earlier, neighbor, we're not just building back. We are building forward better. So that's when the next breeze blow, when the next gust of wind and storm surge comes, we are in a better position to withstand that, my general.
By the way, Senator, they tell me I only have an hour with you. You're a heck of a communicator.
What? Them tell you what? Is lie them lie. Lie them lie. I am here for at least 2 hours, my general, because of some serious batting I go on tonight.
Okay.
What kind of batting, Mr.?
I didn't hear that.
What kind of batting, Mr. I go on tonight?
Serious batting.
That is it,
well, let's turn to NaRRA, Senator. Let's turn to NaRRA. The Prime Minister has described this legislation as potentially one of the most consequential initiatives in Jamaica's modern history,
and he's
particularly in relation to national recovery, infrastructure resilience, and long-term development planning. Yet despite that, it has become one of the most politically contentious issues in recent times. We have seen the opposition vote against it in both houses of parliament, sustain criticism.
Well, I'll allow you to complete your preamble, and then I just make a particular point of clarification. Go ahead.
Yes, from various quarters, and even discussions about possible legal challenges. For many Jamaicans watching this unfold, obvious question is, how does something intended to support national reconstruction become so politically divisive?
Excellent question, Maji. Now, one of the points that I have jotted is that the opposition is afflicted by the desire to be expedient, and what that does, the downside to that, is that it causes them, neighbor, to be incoherent where policy is concerned. So in the lower house...
You are making an accusation that the opposition is incoherent?
And I'll cite an example, at least one example to you. In the lower house, in respect of the passage of the NaRRA bill, when the house was resolved into a committee of the whole house... That's
the Senate.
I'm coming to the Senate, but we are dealing with the first part first.
Okay.
House. When the house had resolved itself in the committee, I remember that same meeting there, hours in the morning.
Yes.
Zin, that same meeting, on several of the clauses in the NaRRA bill, the opposition moved what is called a divide. And when the final vote was taken, they called a divide. No such thing happened in the Senate. So although they didn't support it in both houses, let's be clear on that. The PNP never went support it in the lower house, which is the House of Representatives, and then they went support it in the upper house, which is the Senate, where I sit and my other colleagues in. So now, it's curious, if you are led by principle and driven by such a staunch and compelling need to object to clauses in the bill and the bill itself, why would you undertake one course of action in the lower house, and then when it came to the upper house, they proposed amendments in the upper house, but they did not call for a divide on not one of the causes, and when the final vote was to be taken, they never called for a divide. So the question is, that classical JPS question, how come? How come? Because the PNP, they recognize that they were defeated by way of the lower house. And they know that the bill will pass and it don't make sense. So in a kind of expedient way, them know say, boy, might as well we not bother go that route there. But if you were so convinced and compelled, you ought to, from a principled standpoint, retain your position. And that's one of the points we make about the PNP. They are unprincipled. They are driven by expediency, my friend. Expediency and opportunism, not principle. So principle should see you doing something, whether the lights are on or they are off. Principles should see you operating in a way, whether it is Tuesday or Wednesday. Principle should see you operating in a certain way, whether you have money in your pocket or don't have money in your pocket. It shouldn't be that you thief because $5,000 loan in your pocket on Friday, but but you don't thief on Saturday because $200,000 in your pocket now. If you are a person of integrity and you're undergirded by that, you should get that across the board. So you can't just whiff waffle across the place and carry on like that. But I want to come to your primary question, because that's where I started
the most consequential bill in our time. Let me ask you this, Senator. Do you find that disappointing personally? You're not as old as I am, but do you see this as democracy functioning as it should? Robust debate, scrutiny, disagreement, and to what extent do you believe political tribalism has influenced the public discourse surrounding NaRRA? How could the most consequential?
In short, neighbor, I believe to a large extent the political divide manifested itself and has manifested itself in respect of this NaRRA bill, and I'm going to unpack it a bit, right?
Yes.
Because the truth of the matter is that where I started out in my contribution to the NaRRA debate in the Senate was that what we have suffered in this instance is the passage of a Category 5 hurricane.
Yes.
But this is not virgin territory for us in terms of putting our country back together.
Been there before.
We have been here before in respect of what I characterized as a fiscal hurricane. And COVID is a similar thing to, but I can hold COVID in abeyance for now and treat with what I would like to describe as the fiscal hurricane of 2013. So that period saw Jamaica needing to salvage and restore NABA an IMF agreement. There were certain prior actions that were needed before we could even get the IMF agreement. And of course, on securing the agreement, there were certain reforms that needed to be undertaken. And the government of the day, the Simsimila government, undertook those reforms. And as the political party, forming opposition at the time, led by our now Prime Minister, but then opposition leader Andrew Holness, I served as one of his senior aides at the time. So what may I tell you is not hearsay, it's not speculative. I was in the dressing room. I would have been in the back office where these things were taking place. And the direction that we got from Andrew Holness was that, because he would have had several Monday afternoon, what we called Council of Spokespersons meeting. In other words, shadow cabinet meetings with all the people at the table. Ed Bartlett, Shiny Robinson at the time, Carl Samuda, Derek Smith at the time. All of these guys, Desmond McKenzie, Andrew Wheatley, all of these guys were at the table. Ken Bard did all that back in those days, because this was the 2012 to 2016 period. Zin? So now, the direction that we got from Andrew Holness, leader of the opposition at the time, was folk, Jamaica has to get back on track in relation to an IMF program and certain reforms in order to bring our debt down and to essentially get our fiscal house in order. We have a role to play in that regard. Our policy decision, folk, is that we are going to provide support to the critical enabling legislation where Jamaica's reform is concerned. It was not an easy thing to do because, as you can appreciate, neighbor, politics is a space for contest.
Yes.
And people have a tendency to pander to political opportunism and the contest. So it took a degree of leadership and political maturity on the part of Andrew Holness for him to have resisted that propensity or inclination to engage in the politics and try to weaponize and delay the passage of bills. Because the PNP, a couple when Tuesdays ago, when Angela Brownberg did her ridiculous action, they knew that the government has the majority, They knew that the government's NaRRA bill would pass. But you saw what happened. They unduly drew out the session. They sought to nitpick. They sought to engage in tedious repetition. They sought in committee to basically relitigate and reopen the debate all over again. And they sought to unduly editorialize. In other words, the PNP is in this business. For example, when the bill is being examined clause by clause,
Yes.
They need to be in this business of unduly editorializing rather than proposing their amendments. So when you're in committee and we're looking at clause 13, subsection 2, you are to propose an amendment if you have an observation that you have made and an amendment that you're seeking to advance. Propose the amendment. You don't need to come with this undue editorializing, because it is the editorializing that the debate would have facilitated. You got an opportunity to talk your talk and do your own advocacy in respect of the observations you made where the bill is concerned. So when we come to committee, for us to have an effective and efficient use of parliamentary time, you are supposed to restrict yourself to proposing the amendment and have the amendment considered by the minister piloting the bill. It's either the minister is going to acquiesce to your suggestion or decline respectfully your suggestion. Zin? So we saw how protracted and delayed that thing was. Now, in terms of the political divide that we have where NaRRA is concerned, that, neighbor, I am putting it to you, viewers, and all the people who will come into contact with this bit of content across social media and elsewhere in the days and months and weeks ahead. I have in hand here Prime Minister Andrew Holness's contribution to the 2026-2027 budget debate. You see in this book, my brother, and it is appropriately captioned, Building Forward Together, not as JLP or as PNP, building forward together from resilience to resurgence. Because resilience alone, Maji, now going to take us to where we need to be. Quite simply, Jamaica has been exhibiting resilience. We have exhibited fiscal resilience on account of the fiscal buffers that we have had, the various windows of financial support that we would have had, not least the National Natural Disaster Reserve Fund, that 6.7 billion United States dollars that would have been made available to us by way of our multilateral development partners, both in terms of the government-related component and the aspect of funds, 2-point-something billion US dollars that will be available to Jamaica's private sector. Zin? So this speech is where the Prime Minister did something unique, and I trust you recall what the Prime Minister did in his contribution to the budget debate for this year. He basically took the viewers and stakeholders across Jamaica on a journey around this country. He articulated and presented, in some cases, we call it now artistic impressions of what it is that we envisage, the path and the direction in which we're seeking to take Jamaica. He spoke to a new Black River, a repurposed Black River, a Black River that will be brought more inland, even while down toward the sea, it will be configured differently in keeping with resilience building and more fit for purpose use of land. Because here in Jamaica, all of us can appreciate neighbor, and I say Mr. Enriquez and others come up into the box. Greetings, my general. Respect, good for joining us. Thank you for joining us. When you consider Jamaica, a lot of our development would have been ad hoc. There are some societies, neighbor, that benefited from very structured development, meaning they were geographically situated in conducive spaces, for example, not flood-prone spaces, certainly not in a riverbed, right? And not down by the coastline. Most of Jamaica's main roads, for example, are situated down by a coastline, whether it is over on the north coast or on our southwest coast, for example. You find that the road getting into Westmoreland and taking you into places like, we call it now, when you pass Middle Quarters and sort of where Black River is situated, you have a road that is basically running along the sea. So those things are not optimal, they're not ideal, and ideally what you should have is key infrastructure around the country being situated in a way or in places that are more aligned to and consistent with the vagaries of climate change that we are exposed to, because climate change remains an existential threat to us here in Jamaica. we are located where we are. We can't pick up Jamaica and move it to somewhere else, nor do I think we would even want to do that. Although we are hammered by hurricanes and adverse weather from time to time, I think we kind of love where we're there and we are going easy and trackle. It is our duty, though, to foster increased resilience and do what makes sense in the here and now. So the Prime Minister took the country, the stakeholders, including the persons sitting across from him, the persons who he described as having a very easy job, because he has the very hard job of governing and taking Jamaica through the work to its great promise, while they have the very simple job of what? Just talking. And as the Prime Minister said, they talk nonsense in many instances. So talk is easy and talk is cheap. So based on what was outlined in this presentation, and the Prime Minister took us around the country, the Negril Bay, the Lucy Bay, for example, and the prospects for boating and a new lease on life down in that space, getting Montego Bay decongested by doing the roadway as it is now, the Montego Bay Perimeter Road, and getting a lot of infrastructure situated in proximity to the roadway so you can ease that congestion out of the immediate downtown Montego Bay space. The plans for Falmouth, and then you come further east in terms of Port Antonio, you come back around to St. Thomas, the plans that are in place for other areas in the center of the island. Those things, when the PNP would have seen it by way of the budget debate, it clearly would have telegraphed to them, my brother, said trouble there. In my view, people may not concur with my view, and that's fine. You are DJ where you are DJ, and me a DJ where me a DJ. So in my view, the PNP would in that moment recognize that if this gentleman, Andrew Michael Holness, the same man who them like to knock and tear down, if he achieves even a half of where he has articulated in this budget presentation and what he will be seeking to achieve.
NaRRA is to do.
Huh?
That's separate from what NaRRA is going to do.
Well, much of what is in this is what would be driven by NaRRA, for example, as a special intervention.
Okay.
So that's the point where I'm saying this. There are persons who would have internalized this presentation and would have now associated this NaRRA legislation, the same bill back bill, or the bill up the place bill, and the bill up the place program.
Where you get that term bill back bill from, sir?
No, most the great neighbor, one and only. Remember, don't forget it,
Yes.
It's only one neighbor that pan up, never two. Let's make no mistake.
Well, thank you, sir.
Any other guy, a flavor, not neighbor.
One neighbor. The rest of them are flavor.
So watch me now.
Yes.
NaRRA is the instrument, the entity that is going to facilitate the unlocking of the great promise and vision articulated in this budget presentation. And this is where trouble lies. Because for some people, their political considerations supersede their appreciation for this. You see why I'm put on that shirt, I'm general? Because we are Jamaica first and foremost.
In your army hat. We are joined by Harry Henriquez. Member Harry is a co-host here. But I have one more question before Harry comes in.
Respect Harry. Thanks for joining.
In your contribution to the Senate debate on the NaRRA bill, you quoted Ralph Emerson.
Ralph Waldo Emerson, a man who is a great American essayist. Yes, sir.
When you said that your action speaks so loudly that I cannot hear what you say. And Senator, the scripture says that by the fruit, you know them. During the same contribution, you were very strong in your criticism of the opposition conduct, describing aspects of it as vulgar, disgraceful, and deeply partisan. And you argued that opposition MPs had effectively, shunned their responsibility.
They abandoned their duties, abandoned
on a matter of nationality.
People. Yeah. They abandoned the best interest of their constituents.
Yeah. Let me ask you directly. What explains a political party that hopes to form the government someday, voting against a legislation that the government says is central to Jamaica's reconstruction and resilience. From your perspective, is this genuine concern about the bill? Is there any genuine concern about the bill? Or are we witnessing political overtaking, the politics overtaking the national interest?
Yeah, let me explain what it is, in my view, at heart. The opposition PNP neighbor is operating within a particular paradigm. It takes intellectual depth, it takes intellectual work in order to come up with and present practical, credible, evidence-based, and attention or interest accruing solutions to Jamaica's issues or the problems confronting Jamaica. So you cannot be intellectually lazy. You will hear Cliff Hughes using that descriptor to characterize this current crop of opposition PNP members, from leadership right down. They're intellectually lazy. It is very easy to just operate in opposition within a context of and within the framework of weaponizing undesirables, the misery index. So if road work are going and there's dust nuisance, what does the PNP do? They just say, look there, dust are blow up in their people in face and it trigger the people in asthma. If road work are going, as we're seeing now in parts of Eastern St. Andrew, that Wellington Drive stretch and whatnot, there's a degree of traffic and, the nuisance, traffic build up. As we had some years ago when Barbican was being sorted out, when Constant Spring Road was being sorted out, and when Hagley Park, including the now Portia Simpson Miller Square, down a 3 mile desert, was being sorted out, and we had to use that bypass around Seaview, around at the back of Seaview for a period of time. So when there are things that would increase the misery index, the PNP cannot point to solutions. What they seek to do is exploit and weaponize the misery of the people. So, for example, for many years, Jamaica has long had traffic congestion in the Montego Bay area, whether upon Top Road or Bottom Road. People are come from the Grill neighbor and are trying to catch their flight in at the Donald Sangster International Airport, and they are bedeviled by traffic in many instances.
Yes.
What has this government done? This government is building a bypass, that Montego Bay Perimeter Road, to free up that space so that when people are trying to get to the airport and to them business generally, whether a man are going to bring something, go give baby mother, or a girl are going to check her man, people, not just tourists, can traverse the space in a more expeditious fashion. That is what government does. You come up with and formulate solutions to the problems confronting the society and impacting the Jamaican people. And in opposition, you are to articulate solutions. When the PNP even tries to articulate solutions, they come up with some half-baked, fool something. So, for example, the other day, Julian Robinson suggested to the people of Jamaica that in order to close the fiscal gap, what a PNP government would have done is extract X number of Jamaican dollars from electronic invoicing. Electronic invoicing, neighbor, as Favour Williams pointed out in her rebuttal to the PNP's contributions to the budget debate, made mention that electronic invoicing could not come on stream anytime now. It would have to be further down the line, whether 3 years from now, 4 or 5 years from now, because it required the requisite preparatory work and infrastructure to be put in place for that to be realized. So these guys just make it up on the fly. Them just make it up as it come to their mind. They're not thinking through. They're not reflecting on Jamaica and the issues confronting the Jamaican society in order to articulate sound and well thought out policies. So what they would have wanted was to be able to continue to point to murder rate, Zane. And what the government did was to strategically utilize tools at its disposal. SOSOs would have been one of them, and states of public emergency. But we knew that states of public emergency and SOSOs in and of themselves would not persist and obtain forever. While those things provided critical breathing room to law enforcement, there were some heavy lifting happening. The general that on the screen, big up yourself, Vegas. One Vegas pan up, never two. That is it, my general. So I just want to close out this point, and then so that some of the other folk can, give their own interventions and things. But just to close out this point, it was a comfort zone for Bunting to just get up and say, Lord God, 4 people dead last night. Lord God, 3 people dead yesterday. When the government's policies, our plan secure Jamaica would have now borne success and would have come to fruition, and is now paying rich dividends. Because as I said in my speech in the Senate the other day, neighbor and colleagues all, we had a 8% reduction in murders in calendar year 2023. We had a 19% reduction in murders in 2024. We had a 43% record Rockstone percent reduction in murders last year, 2025. And we are on course to have a good and appreciable reduction in murders. In fact, I gather the target is to come in sub 500 in terms of the murder tally for calendar year 2026 here. So we would have performed to the point where Peter Bunting has taken flight from shadowing the national security portfolio. You see how they're intellectually lazy? So because him not able to have the little murder tally business and 3 man dead down there so, and 2 people dead over there so, and blah, blah, blah. Mind you, unfortunately, we still have murders in them, my brother. And any murder in this country is 1 murder too many.
Yes.
We would want to have a murder rate of 0. We would want to have a murder tally of 0 here in Jamaica. But unfortunately, we still have issues in terms of persons not being able to resolve disputes. People are send people go kill people for dead left and land dispute and all them foolishness there. Domestic related issues, man kill woman and all kind of nonsense. So the point we're making is that they are inherently intellectually lazy. That is why Peter Bunting has left. Him can't think of and apply him mind to any other aspects of national security. He don't have no time for that. It is too hard intellectually, and of course, it is not very sexy. It is not very news attracting and extracting. Him now go extract a lot of news value from shadowing national security right now. So him take flight of it and go create something named productivity. So he is the spokesperson on productivity. And God forbid, if the PNP were to form government, Peter Bunting would ostensibly be the Minister of Productivity, while Fitzjackson some time ago would have been the Minister of Portmore. What? So.
Well, we're going to have to take a little break here. It's a fascinating afternoon here. Well, afternoon into evening. Senator Morgan is taking a drink. We're going to take a little break. I just got news that Friends of the JLP wants me to play this. So let's go and we'll just take a break and come back to Senator Morgan, and we're going to throw to Harry. Courtesy of the Friends of the Jamaica Labour Party.
Equal rights and justice is our everlasting song. Unity and progress will make our nation strong. Stand up for your rights when you hear the bell. Stand up for justice, hear the freedom bell. Remember, Master Man, till he serve you well. Stand up, Jamaicans, when you hear the bell.
All right. I did my job, my friends from Friends of the Jamaica Labour Party. Wanna say thank you so much for staying with us on TikTok, on YouTube, Facebook, Patreon, Twitter, all over the world. We are thousands of people are listening and are watching us this afternoon into evening. Member Enriquez, how are you, sir?
I'm good, Mr. President. I'm good. Send it up, Vegas.
Yeah, greetings, Harry. One love, brother.
I love the conversation thus far, but there's a specific notion going around regarding the NaRRA bill, because I wanted to get into the meat of matter.
Yeah, man, sure.
That says NaRRA done right is more of a legacy for the Prime Minister. So it's a legacy building rather than looking at the improvement of Jamaica. What's your take on that stance? Because it is one that is gaining traction, specifically around the social media and surrounding those who may not be able to understand the bill fully.
All right, one of the things we have to be wary of and be mindful of is a propensity on the part of the JLP's opponents, the opposition PNP, to frame things in a way to suggest that two or more things cannot happen at the same time. In other words, things are mutually exclusive is what they would have us believe. Now, the Prime Minister, even if he were motivated by securing legacy, and nothing is wrong with that, the Prime Minister came to the people of Jamaica in pursuit of their support. The people gave him that support and trusted him with a mandate. And just like any sensible people who go to school, you don't have to write your book on their things so that a report card can say what it for say at the end of the exercise. How can my mother send me to school and me a come back home with a chaka report card? That don't make no sense. So the Prime Minister has a vested interest in acquitting himself well and distinguish himself as one of Jamaica's most impactful and productive leaders in terms of the contribution he would have added to the emergence and development of Jamaica, land we love, during his term of office. So a person being mindful of their individual legacy is clearly not a bad thing. But even separate and apart from the Prime Minister's this notion of legacy, the two are not mutually exclusive, because a man can pursue and have an eye out for legacy while at the same time doing things as we are seeing in this NaRRA bill and in this budget debate speech that the Prime Minister did, doing things that are fit for purpose, timely in terms of the juncture at which Jamaica is at. This thing, the things that are set out in this speech are coming at an appropriate juncture, because I'll tell you, I'll share with the listeners quickly why, the viewers rather, quickly why. Jamaica, as you can appreciate, gentlemen, has been hobbling along with less than desirable and admirable levels of growth.
Thank you, that's true.
Do we not need seismic and meaningful economic growth? Because economic growth can't just be an end in itself. Economic growth has to be about opening up new opportunities, giving many Jamaicans a new lease on life, transforming societies, reducing the vulnerability of some of our communities, fostering resilience in some of our communities, and ensuring that we can do more in terms of the delivery of public services. So when we do the things that we are envisaging to do under NaRRA, it will make many of our schools more fit for purpose and better. Many of our hospitals, even as we're seeing now, because as we're Tufton reported the other day, Cornwall come on stream this year, and the Western Child and Adolescent Hospital that are materialized this year. So for the people who don't like to see ribbons being cut, as I said sort of in the Senate just a couple Fridays ago, little girls now gonna have no ribbon left for putting at them here. We better go invest in a clip and bando, because the JLP over this 5-year term of office, we are gonna cut ribbon and cut ribbon and cut ribbon. Whether it is Damian Crawford daughter's ribbon, whether it is Nikisha Birchall's ribbon, or whether it is well, let me left in this up. But ribbon are gonna cut and trouble are gonna dead, because the little pit them we are going to school now gonna have no ribbon for putting her here, because holy ribbon are gonna cut. And we're just getting started, because NaRRA no put the first shovel or fork in our ground yet.
Thank you, Senator. There's this concentration of power regarding NaRRA, moving things in one central area, right? There's a talk around that the minister, who in this case would be the Prime Minister who is heading it, would have what we call the extensive powers, right, to override and so on. I would have read the bill. I would have understood the bill. But I want your target audience to be the persons who didn't really read the bill, who are running with a narrative, but definitely need to understand that it is not powers provided to the minister to override or to approve everything without a process. Can you explain to our listeners?
I'm happy you have taken the discussion and the focus there. Contrary to the impression being given, much of it for politically exploitative reasons would have been peddled by our opponents, the opposition PNP. NaRRA is a specially devised intervention. It is something that is coming at a juncture where we most need it, because as the people of Jamaica should appreciate, we suffered asset losses in this country that is in the order of 56% of our GDP. So the asset losses, the value of the asset damage that was suffered as a result of the passage of Hurricane Melissa was in the order of 12 billion United States dollars, whereas Jamaica's GDP for 2024 was somewhere in the region of 21 billion. So that is about 56% of GDP. That just gives you a sense as to the magnitude of the devastation caused by Hurricane Melissa. So it means, from a very basic standpoint, Harry, what it means is that business as usual cannot take Jamaica right now to where it needs to be if it is to seriously recover and make that quantum leap from the devastation wrought by the passage of Hurricane Melissa. So you need something that is going to facilitate cohesion and militate against the fragmented system that we have, where an approval is going on, yes, sir, and the person over here have to do for them part, the person over there have to do that. And all of those things serve to slow down the pace at which reconstruction and resilience building projects would have taken place, and it would have slowed down the pace at which any designated strategic investment in Jamaica would have taken place if you did not have NaRRA. So just to be very clear, what NaRRA in part or in large part will help us to do is to, using neighbors' words, is to do the thing in a speedy way and do the thing in a way that creates jobs and positively impacts people's lives. But there are safeguards. The Prime Minister doesn't have a blank check or an open, we call it a carte blanche license to do arbitrary things and whatnot. One of the things that is important for people to understand, Mr. Enriquez, in this conversation is that we contested an election on the 3rd of September, 2025. You would have seen people like Vegas being gifted the 1 p.m. jacket. People like Vegas have performed at many of our, political meetings and rallies. Many of us would have found out across the country, and we sought to make our case to the Jamaican people. Zin, the election was an important activity, because what an election does is that in a transparent, open, and fair way, it settles the argument as to which set of people the people of Jamaica are entrusting leadership of the country for the next 5-year period. That happened on the 3rd of March, and whether some people have awakened from their slumber to accept and understand that reality, yes or no, the results are in, just like the DNA test where them do pan Mari program and them say such and such is not the father. The results are in, and when it comes on to 64-year-old Jamaica, the JLP is the duly elected government.
Yes.
The results are in. Now, when the government is elected, it means that a mandate has been entrusted to the Holness-led administration. The Constitution of Jamaica is so comprised that it vests power in the cabinet of Jamaica. NaRRA, in terms of its authority and its establishment, NaRRA is being established as a result of and on the basis of the authority of the cabinet. Today, as I speak to you, Saturday, Mark Golding would have given anything to be the chairman of cabinet on this day in sport.
Yes.
Saturday, May 16, 2026, Mark Golding would have loved to be the person who had the imprimatur of the Jamaican people and the authority that is vested in cabinet. It just so happens that based on September 3, 2025, Holness and the team that he leads, myself included, are the people who have been entrusted with this awesome responsibility. We do not take or view this responsibility as a basis or an invitation to be high-handed or heavy-handed over the people, or to be draconian, autocratic, or indeed flippant and capricious. We, in service to the people of Jamaica, have taken note of just the landscape in the country, and especially in the context of Hurricane Melissa, the passage and the damage brought about by Hurricane Melissa. We have determined that, listen, instead of hobbling along and hoping that the mechanisms of the state, the current bureaucracy and the current ways of doing things can take us to the destination that we envisage, we have determined as an administration to have a fit-for-purpose, specially created vehicle which derives its authority from cabinet, which sees the minister being the minister to whom the CEO of this entity that we're establishing will report. That CEO and that entity will be receiving directives from such a minister, and any project that is to be pursued by NaRRA will be publicly available, Harry, on a register, so that Jamaicans from all walks of life can see it. Jamaicans like Neighbour and any others who may be in the diaspora can see it, because what the register will do, it will set out the name of the project, it will set out a description of the project, whether it is road, desalination plant, whatever it will be. And it will also indicate the quote-unquote promoters of the project. In other words, the people who are carrying out or backing this project. So, just to be very clear, the Prime Minister does not have license to operate in a capricious or irresponsible manner. The Prime Minister would have taken and subscribed a certain oath of office to be faithful to the Constitution and people of Jamaica, and that is what he has signed up to do. And Jamaica, contrary to the picture and impression the PNP is seeking to give, has a fit-for-purpose governance and accountability and oversight ecosystem. I speak quickly of such things as the Integrity Commission, the Auditor General, and gentlemen, Clause 9, subsection 4, 9.4 of this NaRRA bill that I have in hand here says, the Auditor General, I will want the people them up and down the country, Neighbour, to hear it loud and clear. The Auditor General shall be entitled at all times to examine the accounts of the authority. So same like how the Auditor General carried out a real-time audit the other day, the Auditor General can carry out post-activity audit, and she can carry out real-time performance audits, not dissimilar to the real-time audit that she has undertaken and has just reported on by way of the report tabled in Parliament this past Tuesday on the Hurricane Melissa Relief Initiative. So the PNP was giving the impression that the Auditor General could only come in after the fact when, quote-unquote, things are, the horse has bolted the gate. No. While the horse dep on the track, the Auditor General has full authority and license to attend upon NaRRA and do her audit, or her office can do their work. And separate and apart from that, there is the Parliament, because I spoke earlier of the Integrity Commission, I spoke of the Auditor General, I speak now of Parliament. Parliament has appropriate provisions for oversight and scrutiny. The Public Accounts Committee and the Public Administration and Appropriations Committee, two committees that are chaired by opposition members. Julian Robinson in the case of the PAC and Peter Bunting in the case of the PAAC. Those operations are in place. We also have a Corruption Prevention Act. And we have other pieces of legislation, including the Financial Administration and Audit Act. Those things are binding on government, and government cannot operate in an arbitrary way or in a way that does not secure value for money to the people of Jamaica.
So for those listening and watching, Senator, NaRRA does not replace or remove the guardrails that have been instilled in Jamaica's governmental system.
Absolutely not. Which is what my colleague Rose Bennett Cooper and some listeners would have heard played back on Nationwide News Network on Monday. That wonderful presentation and intervention made by my colleague Senator Rose Bennett Cooper, when she made the point, Harry, that NaRRA does not repeal any existing legislation. NaRRA does not supersede existing provisions. The provisions of NaRRA are set out and are aimed at expediting the consideration of applications, expediting project approval, so that we can get on with the work, as the British like to say, and we can build this country forward together and get jobs secured to the Jamaican people. Because when the place are built up, just like where Mr. McCurdy and others down in Western Jamaica are seeing all around them, when structures are going up, like what the Hard Rock Hotel down on the in the Lilliput area, they are near Lilliput, and the Western Child and Adolescent Hospital and the Cornwall Regional Hospital, you see man put on safety vests, and that is what we like to see. Under the PNP, you hardly see people in hard boot and hard hat and in safety vests going on site. And down in Western Jamaica, man and man in a hard boot, safety vest, and hard hat. I go up on the Montego Bay Perimeter Road, them down at the Hard Rock Hotel being constructed, them over Cornwall Regional and the Western Child and Adolescent Hospital. They are now at the Spanish Town Hospital. The UE are going to deal with something in terms of expansion. So the place are built up. And under NaRRA, one of the projects envisaged is for that long overdue rebuild or build out of KPH, the Kingston Public Hospital, one of our island's premier hospitals, will ensue under NaRRA. And as I said in the Senate, them something that are going to happen whether the PNP likes it or not.
One more before I let someone else chime in, Senator. Speaking in terms of the guardrails, there's a specific one created under NaRRA that mimics EPOC, right? For those listening in, that's the Economic Program Oversight Committee, which was never built in law. Now, in the parliament, the opposition put forward in terms of they wanted JAMROC itself to be placed in law. Can you speak to the purpose of JAMROC in terms of promoting transparency, equity, integrity, and accountability without the compromisation of NaRRA's intended execution speed?
So the legislation enables the minister to set up such committees as the minister may see fit, right? Now, while the Prime Minister spoke to the establishment of a Jamaica Reconstruction and Resilience Oversight Committee, JAMROC, where NaRRA is concerned, we did not have to go the route of legislating for that. Indeed, when Jamaica was in the throes of reform back in 2013 and beyond, where EPOC, the Economic Program Oversight Committee, then was established, EPOC was not situated in any piece of legislation. It was not situated in the fiscal rules by way of the FAA Act. It was not situated in the PBMA, the Public Bodies Management and Accountability Act. It was not situated in any other reform-related piece of legislation of the period. And I hear Senator Ramon Ferguson peddling a falsehood in the Senate, and he was grossly inaccurate in that he was articulating or seeking to suggest that the fundamental difference between EPOC and NaRRA is that NaRRA have certain powers and blah, blah, blah. He was conflating NaRRA with JAMROC. JAMROC is not going to be implementing things. NaRRA is. JAMROC is simply going to be doing what EPOC would have done vis-a-vis our economic reform efforts. So Jamrock doesn't have any powers beyond examining the body of work being undertaken by NaRRA, receiving reports, and coming to the country in the way EPOC did to present and report to the country in an objective and dispassionate way as to the activities of NaRRA and, of course, their own observations and view as to what has been persisting with respect to the undertaking of its work by NaRRA. So the truth of the matter is, Jamrock is not legislated. It need not to be legislated because the basis on which Jamrock is being devised, gentlemen, viewers all, is the social consensus building thrust that we are seeking to foster now. Sadly, because of an uncooperative and obstructionist opposition, we do not have the social cohesion and the political and social consensus that would have characterized that 2013 period. But although the PNP has not elected to repay or to match the solidarity and the cooperation that we provided back in that 2013 period, they have not elected to do that in this 2026 period. That is unfortunately the case, but we nevertheless are moving ahead with our great reconstruction project within the context of NaRRA, and we're doing so with Jamrock on the basis of a social consensus, because what we're saying is that Jamrock folk will be comprised of distinguished Jamaicans who mean this country well. They are patriotic and they are persons who can stand on their integrity. There's a particular gentleman who has so far been tapped to head NaRRA. I would have seen, unfortunately, even in the Senate, one of my colleague senators, a lady who I have since, dubbed Delcy Rodriguez, because all she does is when she comes to the Senate is exhibit her left of center proclivities and inclination, like she holds a Cuban passport or she holds a Venezuelan passport. So my nickname for her now and going forward is Delcy Rodriguez. So what Senator Maziki came to the Senate to indicate was that the gentleman, Mr. Harris is the name, I think, what this distinguished Jamaican, who is on the board of, I think, Citibank and at least one other major corporation, is it Nike? Something to that effect.
Yeah, that's Nike. Mm-hmm.
That gentleman, she's trying to impugn the gentleman by saying he's associated with a right of center think tank. And so what if the gentleman's politics is right of center? Just like how you, Delcy Rodriguez, get to be a left of center fanatic and a left wing, yes, adherent. The gentleman may elect to be a conservative. Nothing is wrong with that. That's the beauty of a democracy. We don't necessarily have that in other spaces, like some spaces that are 90 miles away from Jamaica.
We're far into the discussion, 28 minutes after 7 o'clock. Mr. Vegas is with us and also Chops Media. We have about another 32 minutes left, and we want to take some of the listeners' questions, and I do have quite a bit more that I want to discuss with the Senator before he goes. Let's go over to Mr. Vegas. Hello, sir.
Hey, neighbor, how are you?
I'm all right, man. Great.
Hey, Marlon, Wagwan.
Respect, Subi. One love, my general.
Yeah, man, I'm just going to be quick. I'll compact whatever I have to say, and you can address them quick time, because I know time is against us. Seeing that the risers, the new PNP risers, objectives are to prey on the people's emotion, to appeal to emotion. What plans do you have to counter? Is it possible for you to set up some form of outlet or some form of school or classes to teach the standing order so people can understand that you can just simply ask to suspend the standing order when you want to speak patois in Parliament? Just to counter some of these tugging at the heartstring of the people, the lay person who can't really understand at a higher level. My next thing is the based on NaRRA. and based on the discussion that you're having here now, is there any plan to take it into like some town hall settings across the country? Because it's not everyone is gonna be on social media or gonna get the information that you have, you know, especially if we have people out here spreading misinformation and disinformation. Yeah, and my last thing that I want to put to you, is there any way how the Jamaica Labour Party can take some of these initiatives from out of the hands of the risers, seeing that or knowing that whenever there's anything, case in point, what Desmond McKenzie spoke about with the parish council in Westmoreland, is there any way for you for the administration to take some of these initiatives out of the hands of the risers and do it themselves or go about it themselves?
Well, to take that last one first, the policy of the government is not to disenfranchise duly elected representatives of the people, whether you are operating at the divisional level, so you're a member of a municipal corporation, as in the case of a councillor or a mayor, or you're operating at the central government level, as in the case of a member of parliament. However, there may be interventions and programs devised by government that do not necessarily see allocations going to members of parliament or indeed to a councillor. And that may be a part of why there are some persons who may be viewing NaRRA as an instrument that disenfranchises them, because they will be seeing the place around them being built up. They'll be seeing Black River transformed. They'll be seeing parts of Westmoreland being transformed. The same with Hanover and other parts of the island. And they would not be in a position, to the extent that they are minded to, Mr. Vegas, sabotage, withhold resources, or otherwise frustrate the intent and work of the duly elected government. In relation to the business of the emotive exploitation and you know, tactics.
Before we move from there, Senator, I just want to do a quick follow up, because when I listened to Mr. McKenzie, he said $70 million was sent to the parish council, right? Yeah. Right, and he said the delay and the 2 months and plus that they took to look over MOU and stuff like that and wasn't getting things done. He said that he could have not sent back the money and do the work themselves. You see, or let the government deal with themselves. So
that could have been an approach.
Because if people are going to sabotage, it's going to fall back on who? The administration.
Because when the houses are not sorted out, or in other words, when the settlement of people, the provisions for the settlement of people are not made, people will be able to come, meaning some PNP supporting detractors, will them same one going to come and say the government is insensitive, and see that look how many months them have people in shelters instead of carving out land and settling them appropriately in respective and suitably identified accommodation. So you're absolutely correct, and that avenue could have been available to Minister McKenzie if it is that there was recalcitrance or negligence on the part, in his view, of the municipal corporation. But just to dial back to NaRRA, NaRRA will be holding or interfacing with various approving entities like a municipal corporation in a way that sees directives being issued in keeping with the provisions of the NaRRA legislation, and they will be held to providing their response or being forthcoming with their determination. And if it is that the authority, NaRRA, having satisfied itself that the municipal corporation has not been complying with the directives, may apply to the minister for a step in order, and the minister, having satisfied himself of certain things, including an independent assessment by an independent technical expert, would acquiesce in relation to the step in order and the effect of the prime minister or the minister which NaRRA speaks to, which in this case is the prime minister, that it would have the effect as though it were an approval from the municipal corporation. So there are persons, no doubt, which is one of the unfortunate things here, there are persons who, for political reasons, may seek to be and operate as flies in the ointment. Thankfully, though, NaRRA has appropriate provisions for that, because we know that although we would want to think the best of people, and we want to think that all the members of the political class are mature, patriotic, and well-intended people, to the extent that you have any approving entity, whether a municipal corporation or any other entity, deciding to be recalcitrant, there is appropriate provisioning for that. But there's an important observation, without belaboring the point, that I want to make, Subi. That being, you see this business of just reaching the Jamaican people, more and more, if we think about it, it's a massive proposition. And whenever I address audiences wearing my hat as parliamentary secretary, I speak of education as being a massive undertaking where government alone can't do it. Which is why education requires past students associations, meaning alumni. It requires parents to be involved, the church, communities, and of course the donor community, NGOs, you name it, people from the diaspora who will be directing support to education through such an entity as the National Education Trust, for example, because the resources of government and the constraints therein are of such that government just simply can't be the only partner in relation to education. And it is the same with reaching the Jamaican people. Whether through music, Vegas have to chip in with theme thing. Marlon have to appear on this, do up an infographic, do up a short video, like we see Julian Robbins' short video today. I am minded to do a particular short video as I had contemplated a couple of days ago when we drafted a certain press release. So there are many avenues. I cannot speak definitively on the matter of town halls. I know that town halls would be effective, but one of the things that I think we should really focus attention on is not just what we're doing here this evening, but also little small bite-sized pieces of information, whether it is a 90-second video, a 60-second video, a 30-second video, 2-minute video, something that will just become as viral and as prevalent in the space in as much as the unwholesome and criticizing bits of information and indeed propaganda from our political opponents, pervade the space from time to time.
Yeah. Senator, before I bring in Chops, staying with NaRRA. Yeah. Now that the bill has successfully
been passed in Parliament, yeah.
The question many Jamaicans are asking is what happens next? Walk us through the immediate steps. What does the legislation, when does the legislation formally take effect? What has to happen administratively, operationally, before the agency becomes fully functional? In other words, how soon does the move from Parliament to visible action and implementation take effect?
All right, so now that NaRRA has been passed in both the lower house and the upper house, it would have been advanced to the Governor General for the Governor General's assent, meaning the Governor General's imprimatur and approval, and thereafter the legislation would have to be gazetted. In other words, at the Jamaica printing office, it would have to be publicized that this, based on the Governor General's assent and having been passed in Parliament, this piece of legislation is now in force. The minister will determine what is called an appointment date, meaning the date at which NaRRA comes into effect. Now, one of the things for your viewers to appreciate, neighbor, is that even while we have been in the throes as a government of getting this legislation on stream, there is appropriate background and preparatory work that has been happening. So I gather back in February, there was an advert put out with the requisite terms of reference seeking to enlist or seeking to recruit a CEO for NaRRA. Yes. So same like how the Prime Minister the government would have cast its mind to the personnel for the Jamrock meaning the Jamaica Reconstruction and Resilience Oversight Committee, and this gentleman out of the United States would have been identified, one of our Jamaican brothers, a distinguished and patriotic Jamaican brother. The matter of a CEO, which is going to be the head honcho vis-a-vis NaRRA, is being determined. I don't think that the selection has been made as yet, but I trust that in the days and weeks ahead, when a selection has been made, the public will be duly notified of that. And separate and apart from the matter of the CEO, there is also the matter of how NaRRA will be structured, because NaRRA will be an administrative entity in government, just like any other. So it will have to have staff. No? So you have a CEO, it may have deputy CEOs, and it may have various directors or senior director for this, director for that. It has its accounts people, it will have its HR related people, all of the other enabling facilities or features of, an entity that is operating will be built out. So what is referred to, neighbor, as NaRRA's establishment would have been devised, because based on what the entity will be established to do and what is contemplated as its workload, job descriptions would have been developed and a determination would have been made as to the organization's establishment. And that, I believe, was advanced to the Ministry of Finance for its approval. And of course, the remuneration, meaning the pay, the salary for the various people who will staff NaRRA, would also be determined. And ultimately, on the date appointed by the minister for NaRRA to start keep, NaRRA will start keep. And for some people, it going to give them molly gripe and fluxy complaint.
Minister, you let's turn to the broader issue of political communication and public engagement. You sit on the Jamaica Labour Party Communication Task Force, correct?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
And recently in Westmoreland, the Prime Minister spoke about war on disinformation. You yourself, Senator, are regarded as one of the leading communicators within the party, and many supporters often take their cues from your interventions and public explanations on major national issues. If Marlon says it, it goes across TikTok. But I tell you candidly, Senator, in speaking with ordinary Jamaicans on the ground about NaRRA, I actually went downtown Kingston, went to Mandeville and went to Old Harbour. The level of understanding, clarity, and confidence surrounding the legislation has not always been very encouraging. As a matter of fact, not many persons were able to even tell me what NaRRA is about. Do you accept that this is an area of concern for the government and the party?
I absolutely do, neighbor, because just to be very clear, one of the things we must never do, irrespective of how many years we have been doing something, irrespective of how qualified we think we are, yes, and irrespective of how experienced we think we are, we must always appreciate that, listen, societies evolve, the ways of doing evolve, the work at hand evolves, and therefore there is always room for improvement. So I was particularly delighted when one of your viewers, one of your avid viewers, conveyed and transmit to me some content from a previous broadcast of yours. I think it may have been your Wednesday evening show. And you set out, quite importantly, some elements in relation to the psychological underpinnings of communications. And not least of them would be such things as, to clarify and concretize. You use contrast to counter. So you use a dichotomy. You present one over here so and the other one over there so. Very important. You connect through community. And one of the things, I can't necessarily get into much of that in this forum because we are on a public platform. But one of the things our opponents rather, seems to do is that they do a lot of this, the mobilization of community, because every so often you will hear of civil society organizations and umbrella group of this, that, and whatnot. And what they are doing, it's largely, or it is in many respects, the PNP's way of getting its surrogates, which are really PNP people, politicians, the kind of people that Aluna Samba spoke about some years ago, Chopper, when she made mention of, they call them civic group, yes, but we ensure that they're PNP people. She said it in a very flippant and matter-of-fact way. And we know how matter-of-fact the PNP are. So they will dress up in all kind of garb. Some will don the collar. Some will profess to be, a civil society organization. But as I dial back, neighbor, to my infamous Ralph Waldo Emerson quote, it is not what a person says that is instructive. People like myself don't get deluded by the hand of Esau, because the voice of Jacob is instructive. And for some people, they present the hand of Esau, but they speak with the voice of Jacob. And that is why, for me, it is not about what a person says. It is about those things that I see them doing. So when Angela Brown Burke did what she did and then doubled down and sought to be wrong and strong, and when Dennis Gordon would have sought to excuse or explain away or justify his the misuse of the UHWI's tax exemption status, from whence his company Jack Den Limited benefited or was said to have benefited by way of that Auditor General report, I didn't hear the 28 civil society groups come out. Did you?
Yes. Quite true. You're quite right, sir.
I didn't see last week Tuesday members imploring the civil society organizations to come out to Parliament to telegraph to Mrs. Brown Burke. And it was, remember now, this thing wasn't Angela Brown Burke alone. The opposition leader led the defiance.
Yes.
He led the undermining of the dignity and sanctity of Parliament by way of rising to his feet. The others around him sought to do the same. And I believe it was Julian Robinson is videoed as having signaled to Dayton Campbell that he must come over some more to block in Angela Brown Burke. So this matter was not just an Angela Brown Burke problem. Because remember now, Angela Brown Burke was named by the Speaker. Irrespective of what caused you to do what you did, and irrespective of how you feel about it, a lawful instruction is precisely what it is. I know that there were constabulary personnel who were on hand to come and get her out of Parliament. But that would be very poor optics. They would have dragged her kicking and screaming, and if the others would have sought to be defiant and complicit in it and with it, they too, Dayton Campbell with him, dyed beard and all, he too would have been dragged kicking and screaming. Whether they hear black or gray.
We're thankful that it didn't reach to that, eh?
So the short and the simple point I'm making, without digressing too much, is to say what we are looking to and what people like myself are hoping for is for those who profess to be civil society or members of civil society and persons in those NGO communities to be consistent if it is that they have a vested interest in the governance of our country and in the good order and function of our country. In as much as you hold government to account, you have to also take and hold the political opponents, the opposition to task, the parliamentary opposition. You must also take them to task and hold them to account. Because what happened in the parliament a few Tuesday nights ago was not one of our finest moments, as the Prime Minister himself pointed out. When you reflect on it, it would not be registered among the better moments in our parliament, neighbor.
Well,
so, in short, we know, I mean, I am a communicator. I don't profess to be somebody who is, we call it now, above or beyond criticism or perfect. I don't profess perfection. And the truth of the matter is that I have my own struggles in the sense that I spent several years studying the dictionary, and I tend to use words that are not necessarily in some instances. You will hear me say capricious earlier this evening, and sometimes I'm trying to say, shoot, how is this? What is a smaller word for that? So I too have my own deficits, and which is why I go to great lengths to try and work personally, neighbor, on communicating in a way that is a bit, more relatable, and a bit more digestible and not above people's head. Because yes, based on the space within which you operate and just who you are as a person, sometimes you will convey things in a way that, boy, it really could have been packaged and tailored differently. So I don't profess perfection, and that is the honest, posture with which I come to the conversation and the public engagement. I know that I'm not perfect, I'm not infallible, and that is why I endeavor to avail myself to other experts, to my peers, because I see you on this platform, Chopper, Harry, Subi, and others as my peers. And sometimes when you drink a beer with somebody or you knock it with somebody and you get a message from Camille, big up yourself, Camille, and others, it may cause you to assimilate and just grasp something. It may cause you to take on board. So another word for assimilate is like take on board something and try to ensure that, boy, you're
quite correct, Senator. But I have Chops Media with us. I'd love to press you a little bit more on the communication thing.
No, man, and I appreciate that. Probably one of the other evenings we can come back. Because it's true, this evening we'll put the spotlight large on NaRRA.
Yes.
Because I do take the point. There are some things that I can't get too much into on a public platform such as this. We do have some areas that we need. For example, even the point I was making earlier about having other people, because when you have other supportive voices who are surrogates, it will help you because, as you said in an earlier broadcast, neighbor, people repose trust and confidence in some other members of the community.
Yes.
For example, if pastor says something, they may not like Marlon Morgan. Them say, Chuck, that big old fat boy there. Me know why you're not with myself.
Yes.
But they may have deacon so-and-so or teacher so-and-so and principal so-and-so, and they repose because of a certain level of personal relationship and, admiration. They may repose a degree of confidence in that person. So that's one of the areas that I think we could do better at, just having more people being players on the park, being people willing to put up them hand and help advocate and carry the agenda of the governing Jamaica Labour Party.
Fantastic. Chops Media.
Yeah, thank you, neighbor, and thank you to your listeners. Thank you, Marlon, and I see Harry and Joshua also part of the panel. I don't want to be long. I just really jump on here because I wanted to say thank you to Marlon for coming on and giving some time to explain and to expand on this whole NaRRA conversation. It's a well-needed conversation. It's a conversation that I think we need to, as you have said earlier, bring it into a different dimension. It requires a multifaceted approach in terms of how we communicate and how we break this down to the common Jamaican. Because the truth is, this is a very important legislation. And I think that we ought to do whatever is in our powers to make sure that every single Jamaica is aware of how important it is and the impact it's going to have on the entire society. So I appreciate you coming on, Marlon, and sort of going a little bit deeper than what you get from a 30-second ad or a social media post.
Yeah.
And I agree with you, and I'm really looking forward to having the conversation where we can, devise a plan as to how we can take this further, because I think the conversation is necessary. Neighbor mentioned having conversation with persons in different areas of Jamaica, and I've also had conversation with persons who really and truly have absolutely no clue as to what NaRRA is. So when I go to places in St. Elizabeth and I have the conversation about NaRRA, persons is asking me, what really is NaRRA? And these are not just farmers and persons who are not intellectually savvy. These are ordinary Jamaicans. Some of them are teachers. Why is it that NaRRA is not being explained in the school system, Minister? You are a minister, doing a minister in the Ministry of, well, not doing a minister, I think you're the Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Education. Something that you might want to think about. Is there any provision that give us the leverage to have the discussion, the NaRRA discussion, let's say, at a devotion in schools in the mornings? Because I think it's important for us to get our young people, especially students, aware of what NaRRA is. Because they can take it back home and explain it to their grandmother. They can explain it to their father, their older brothers who might not be so in tune to social media. So I think we need to really and truly examine all the other opportunities that exist and the options available to us to really dig deeper, because I think by way of just passing the bill, we had to fight tooth and nail to get it through Parliament. It was much easier in the upper house. I'm quite certain that that occurred because we have persons like yourself in the upper house, Marlon, who brings a certain level of clarity and would have been able to put under control some of the persons who could otherwise be rowdy and would want to upset the apple cart. We thank you for being there and holding the fort down and keeping people like Senator Lambert Brown in check. So I just wanted to say that to you, that let us look at it from where I sit. If there's anything that I can do to contribute to that process, I'm always willing and ready to work to see if we can bring this down and get within the next month or two to get the average Jamaica by now in August, by now in independence. If we really and truly drill it down, we should be able to get a higher percentage of Jamaicans appreciating NaRRA and understanding what NaRRA is. And I'm raising my hand and telling you that yes, we are ready to contribute and to make it happen. Thank you.
And if I may add, Chops, Senator, to be frank, when I listen to Senator Tomlinson's argument, it is a very absurd argument he's making, I don't know if you heard Senator Tomlinson, the PNP put out something. I really, if there is one, disappointment I have, is that I hear so much rubbish coming out of the opposition that sometimes I wonder, how is it that they're allowed to get away with these nonsense? Because it really don't hold no water. And I feel that somehow a way has got to be found to push back stronger against some of this, because they come out with these glowing press releases and videos. But when you drill it down, you realize that they're very misleading.
One of the things you'll realize, neighbor, is that the PNP, they operate largely in the spaces where there's friendly fire. Now, for me, yes, I deal with friendly fire and I deal with the fast bowling where in your knees and in your neck. So even in tough moments, when, RJR reaches out, Deon Jackson Miller is seeking to have an interview in relation to the findings of the Auditor General. Other people may run. The PNP certainly doesn't go to like a media house that they would consider to not be their mouthpieces in terms of, friendly fire and whatnot. So I go and I am able to maneuver on any wicket, all angles, beyond the headlines, Nationwide at 5, the cover story, the This Morning program, whatever the program is. Because I often communicate to my colleagues that our brief, meaning the platform on which we stand, our record of achievement, what we are about, and what we are seeking to do for the people of Jamaica is far superior and way more potent way more potent than that of the PNP, that we don't have to cower. You ever hear that song where Carter said, "Mobi no fear them no day"?
Yeah.
We not have to cower or quiver in our boots.
The government
is intellectually fearful. Yeah. And that is why they can only operate in the little swamps that they go to. So they will go to this toxic Obia Channel at night time with them little carrying on, and other people like Brian and Durval and all kind of jokers, right? So those are the people. So they cannot lend themselves to being challenged because, as you quite rightly observe, neighbor, when you sit and listen to the line of argument. So, for example, Cleveland Tomlinson issued a press release.
Oh, yes.
Where he indicated, so he sought to take me to task and sought to indicate to me that the business of the 1.8% of the donated funds being spent was not about bureaucracy. It was about governance. I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
The truth of the matter is that it was really a function of two things. You had to have certain approvals afforded, which is a bureaucracy issue, plain and straight. But also, because of what the government is seeking to do, which is to tangibly demonstrate to donors and other stakeholders, including the very opposition and including the Auditor General, that listen, this is what we use the donated funds to do. See it here, see it there, look at it. That is it. Because we could have easily used it to go buy some tin of bully beef and some mackerel, some rice and some flour. And when the people absorb that and, that. But while we did not use the donated funds, because as you know, money, financial resources, budgets are fungible. And while we did not use the donated funds to do that, it doesn't mean that never keep, because food care packages, cleaning up of communities and so on, including places like Chabajan knows it well, Catherine Hall and so on, the flooding and the displacement that people suffered. All of those things happened, and a lot of things happened with GOJ support, meaning government-related support, but also the outpouring and support of what is referred to, neighbor, as the humanitarian aid community, the HCs. So when Ramesh doing thing, and other artists do them thing, yeah, Sean Paul and Shaggy it was, we big up all the persons who poured in and partnered. So members of the political class dug deep, members of the entertainment industry, ordinary Jamaicans, people literally pack up them vehicle with things and brought supplies down to Western Jamaica. So both government money do that as well as non-government money. So it is not that people went unfed. World Food Kitchens were there doing all type of things in terms of meal solutions, wholesome meal solutions, to the point where I saw some people doing things that were less than desirable in terms of criticizing to say them no want the rice mixed up with the meat, separate the rice from the meat. I mean,
the government,
up, my brother.
Yeah, the government, sir, responded to the needs of the citizens and at the same time protected the integrity of the public resources. And I think that is something the government should be commended for.
Exactly.
I wish I could have a conversation with Senator Tomlinson to point out the absurdity of his argument. Anyway, I don't think he's going to come. Joshua is here because I know that our time with you is at an end. Joshua?
We're going to go through to 8:30.
Greetings, sir. Greetings.
Okay.
I can go through to 8:30 my time.
Okay. All right. So moderators, let's see if we can take the listeners. We can each give them one question for the senator. Go ahead, Joshua.
Greetings, Senator. How are you, sir?
Joshua, I'm good, sir. Good to be on, and thank you for joining us as well.
No problem, sir. It is my pleasure. There are two things. Because NaRRA is so consequential. Of course, the PNP, having begun their journey of trying to be a hindrance to progress, is going to even go much further. And we hold no illusion that they're going to try and get their people within the mix of things. And there's no way we can avoid it. It's just a reality. Are there systems and mechanisms in place that to ensure that everything that is to be approved is time bound? To say, okay, we submit this document, it must be returned to us in 5 days, right? And failure to do that, are there penalties which will be applied if not? You know, if a reasonable explanation is not given, And if not, what would be those? And secondly, as it relates to Westmoreland, which is one of the examples of money being given, but due to political interference, it seems, um, then those money are not being expedited the way they should be. Um, could there be a bill being piloted? I know it may seem draconian, but tough times did require tough measures. A bill being piloted for anyone who stands in the way of the expeditious happenings of government, that there ought to be possible prison time and fines to them. We have to change the system. So those are my two questions.
Thank you, Joshua.
So just to be clear, NaRRA is a scheme. The legislation is an arrangement that makes appropriate provisions to have the entity empowered to issue directives to entities that are determined and defined as approving entities, for example, like a municipal corporation. And it sets out the criteria that they must adhere to. And if it is that those entities, for whatever reason, are not cooperative or undertaking or complying rather with the directive of NaRRA, there is appropriate remedy and provisions in this bill where that is concerned, which is why NaRRA is empowered based on the bill here to apply to the minister. This is section 23(1)(a). The authority may make an application to the minister for a step-in order. So you can rest assured, Joshua, that NaRRA is appropriately crafted to be able to achieve the objectives that not Andrew Holness, not Joshua or neighbor, but the people of Jamaica as a collective need to be established, because we need to reconstruct and we need to ensure that we are focusing attention on building resilience even as we reconstruct. And we want to have private enterprise playing their role in this great effort of reconstruction and resilience building, which is why this same something, NaRRA, makes appropriate provisions for what is referred to as designated strategic investment projects. So those will be private sector led. Now, I came across a news item. Somebody can probably Google it quickly. Mayor Swaby had something to say re NaRRA. Now, we know the color shirt that Mayor Swaby wears. Mr. Christopher McCurdy is out in Western Jamaica. He knows the color shirt that Mr. Danray Delancey, the chairman of the Westmoreland Municipal Corporation, wears. We all are apprised that in the Hanover Municipal Corporation, where Mr. Sheridan Samuel serves as chairman and mayor of Lucy, that the JLP has no division. We do not hold any of the 7, I gather is there 7? We do not have any of the 7 divisions in the Hanover Municipal Corporation. So one of the observations I made in my own review of NaRRA is that by virtue of the posture, the political divide that the PNP, the opposition PNP has signaled, it may invariably and unfortunately cause political considerations to operate on the minds of PNP officials who are serving in positions of influence and authority, such as our municipal corporations. We are hopeful that all approving entities will do their work and discharge their obligations under their respective legislation and under NaRRA in a way that is professional, such that there is no sabotage or politically contrived and motivated recalcitrance, but even while we hope for that to be the case, as I was seeking to assure Joshua a while ago, NaRRA makes provisions for any eventuality such as a, God forbid, chairman of a municipal corporation, or indeed a municipal corporation or any other approving entity in keeping with this, or within the context of NaRRA, who may decide to frustrate the efforts of the authority in pursuing and executing these projects that will redound to the benefit of the Jamaican people. Appropriate remedy and provisions are made in this, and we trust that NaRRA will be a resounding success based on, the competent men and women who will lead the organization and the competent government that will continue to provide the direction through the minister and through cabinet.
Okay, thank you so much, Senator. Let's jump over to TikTok, where we find Scratchy, one and only. Hi, Scratchy, how are you doing?
Yeah, good night, neighbor. Good night.
Hi, what's up?
Senator Morgan, blessed night to you, sir.
Yeah, good night, Scratchy.
Yeah, Mr. Morgan, I don't really have a question, but I just want to say, sir, enough respect, enough love. I think the host has done a wonderful job. I don't want to repeat or anything on Mr. Process. Enough respect to you, sir. Just continue to do the good job that you're doing, Mr. Morgan. I think you're doing an exceptional job. I think you're a great asset to Jamaica by extension. And also, because you continue to press on same way with the information out there, Mr. Morgan. You have a delivery style that I think can a lot of Jamaicans can relate to. And not just your delivery style, even your own image itself, Jamaicans can identify with you compared to the opposition leader, So I think just continue to stay focused, Mr. Morgan.
We're going to do the maths, man.
Yeah, man, you're one of the persons who I believe that even in the election campaign, you were the first one when that press conference was held, and you were the first one who really gave the party back a certain level of buzz in that election campaign before the election, Mr. Morgan. And I think that you're doing a wonderful job. And just continue, Mr. Morgan.
Yes,
I must
sir.
say that this platform here, sir, we stand strong with the government. We are pushing the government message each and every night. We will always be here for the government. We will never sell out the government. We are pushing narrative, we are pushing the information, we are play our part in the advancement and the development of Jamaica, Mr. Morgan. And I know you, Mr. Morgan, I hear you speak, and you will also attest and say that definitely presentation is a key thing, Mr. Morgan. And when you look at our host, Mr. Morgan, look at the man presentation, look at how the man dress.
Yeah, man, clean like, they're on the front page of a magazine.
Mr. Morgan, this is how the man dress every night, Mr. Morgan.
Yeah, I see it, man.
Jamaica.
Kudos to you, neighbor. You present well and you embody what the Jamaican people can aspire to. No fakeness, no anything. You know, if you do not put on and no rare, you are just authentic and clean, as we say, like magazine, pan the people them device screen.
Yeah, man, Mr. Morgan, this is friendly territory, So I asked that, Mr. Morgan, if after you leave here tonight, Mr. Morgan, we know important the message is near, Mr. Morgan. I will ask that if you can just speak to a couple more of your colleagues, ministers, and senators, and let them know that, it is okay for them to come on this platform. The host is someone who's very professional. I know you would agree with that. The host is someone who may not be a journalist by profession, but I don't think any journalist across the length and breadth of Jamaica have anything over him. Because
probing and interrogative, which is what we want. You don't have to agree with everything the guests have said. And you can challenge the guests as well. And I admire that in relation to how neighbor undertakes his work. Kudos to you again, neighbor, in that regard.
Yeah, man. So I'm protecting his ear, so I know you have to leave. So I would just say, big up Mr. Morgan.
Yeah, respect Scratchy. One Scratchy upon the app, never two.
Say hi to the Prime Minister for us, Mr. Morgan.
Right.
I love our Prime Minister, pray for him every day and night. And Mr. Morgan,
yes, sir.
Before you leave, I want you to big up our viewers. The majority of our viewers, Mr. Morgan, no disrespect to Jamaican, but we have a very large diaspora viewership on this program here. A lot of the persons who tune into this program are in the diaspora. And I would love, before you leave, Mr. Morgan, you give them a special shout out and a special big up. I don't want to call any name because if you call any name, it's not going to stop for now.
No, because list long. So I too will join the Scratchy being saying, some years ago, the Prime Minister described the Jamaican diaspora as the Commonwealth of Jamaica. and that's the outlook and the policy of this government. Our Jamaican brothers and sisters, though they are in other parts of the world, whether the UK, Canada, US, across the Caribbean, you name it, they are no less Jamaican than those of us who are on the rock itself. And the good thing is that our diaspora community, they demonstrate that their heart is here. So even though them there in the Middle East are going to do the maths, who are pilot, who are this, who are that, and are earn their money, their heart is here. They know, like many of us, that there's no place like home, and we owe, as a government and as a country, a debt of gratitude to you, the members of the diaspora. And like Scratchy B suggested a while ago, as Scratchy suggested a while ago, I wholeheartedly salute and tip my hat to you, our Jamaican brothers and sisters who are out in the diaspora, whether, as I said before, you're in Europe, North America, across the Caribbean, or elsewhere around the world. Thanks for making this platform what it is. Thank you to those of you who support the governing Jamaica Labour Party, for those of you who come with your suggestions and your constructive criticisms. Those things help to keep us on our toe and help us to improve. Because as I said before, even the Prime Minister himself, we don't profess to be perfect. We try to improve, we try to make better, which is why even the management of your donor funds, this 1.44 billion that came in, we know of the accusations and the allegations that have been leveled at us in the past. And as you there in the diaspora would have seen, there is not one scintilla of accusation or allegation of corrupt use of your donor funds that would have ensued following your donations in support of our Hurricane Relief or our Hurricane Melissa Relief Initiative and the Support Jamaica platform. So that underscores our posture as an administration. We are not perfect people, but we are hardworking, patriotic, and committed Jamaicans elected by the people of Jamaica, working on behalf of the people of Jamaica to make this country of ours a better place, to improve the delivery of public services, and to improve the quality of life of the Jamaican people, so that more of them may opt to build up and operate here in Jamaica rather than even look outside of our shores for their quality of life or the quality of life that they envisage and aspire to. We want to build up Jamaica so that people can opt, neighbor, to stay here. So respect again, Scratchy B.
Fantastic. We have the final question from Protecting, and then I'll come back to wrap up. Protecting Jamaica.
Good evening, neighbor. Good evening, panelists. Good evening, listeners, viewers. Good evening, Senator. How are you?
Yeah, greetings, Protecting Jamaica. One love, Majay. Thanks for being on with us.
Enough respect. Thank you for coming. I appreciate this very much, and I know that the listeners and viewers really do appreciate it. I appreciate the fact that the discussion went to political communication with Chaps earlier. Thank you, Chaps, for agreeing with the position I have taken for the past week. Now, Senator, I want to ask you one question. Now, we all support NaRRA.
Yeah.
There are two other bodies that will be supporting NaRRA, which is the FAST and Jamrock. Am I right there?
Well, FAST is really the private sector element. Jamrock is the oversight. So don't really think of Jamrock as supporting NaRRA. Jamrock is there as an important oversight outfit, not dissimilar to what EPOC was in relation to our economic reforms of 2012 and beyond.
Now, I want to ask you, is the government considering putting anything at all in place to protect these private individuals who will be leaving their posh jobs? Man come from Nike, man used to be on the board of one of them place. Mm-hmm. And they will be coming home to assist in the building forward of our society. Now we know how the PMP operates, and we know how underhanded they are sometimes. They are not afraid to attack. They are not afraid to target and attack people's character. Is the government considering this? that these people will be coming slam dash in the middle of the political foray, is there anything at all that can be put in place to protect these people's reputation? Because after NaRRA is done, wrapped up, and folded up, these people will have to go back to their private lives. Is there any consideration to put anything in place to protect these people's reputation?
All right. Your question is in keeping with your own moniker. Your moniker is Protect Jamaica, and you raise a question that touches and concerns the issue of safeguarding, preserving, and protecting the good name and reputation of people. Now, one of the points I often make to my audiences is that Jamaica is a nation of laws, institutions, and processes. We're not a nation of men merely. We're a nation of laws. The Constitution of Jamaica and indeed the laws of Jamaica provide certain provisions. And your question a while ago, Protect Jamaica, even speaks to one of the points we have been making within NaRRA. NaRRA doesn't seek to have or need to have certain things provided in it because those things are provided for elsewhere, meaning in other pieces of legislation. Now we know that for politically motivated reasons, there are persons who may seek to impugn, castigate, or defame and abuse the persons who step forward to serve either in NaRRA as employees or serve on the oversight body, which is JAMROC. I would have indicated earlier, Protect Jamaica, that my own colleague in the Senate has already gone down a very nasty road by seeking to frame the gentleman who will be chairing NaRRA in a negative way, in terms of alluding to him being conservative or from a right of center standpoint. And so what, lady? You are left of center. So what? The man enjoys certain rights where he is in the United States, which is a democracy. And we too in Jamaica, we're a fledgling democracy. And so the gentleman who will chair NaRRA is entitled to determining whether he holds and subscribes to left of center politics or right of center politics. Get over it with Adelcy Rodriguez self. But let me dial back to your question, protecting Jamaica. To the extent that any person who is a member of JAMROC or any employee of NaRRA feels that they have been defamed, abused, or have had their constitutional rights trespassed on, because remember, it is provided for in our constitution that people are entitled to, protection against discrimination and so on, especially on the grounds of, politics and whatnot. The persons who feel that they would have been defamed or otherwise had actions against them that are unlawful, they have recourse, protecting Jamaica, they have recourse by way of the laws that govern this country. So NaRRA, or the government in this instance, doesn't need to go and refashion something to say, hey, anybody defame the people who are on JAMROC or does something unlawful, this is what will apply to them. Remedy is already available, and it's an important point because one of the things that the PNP did throughout the NaRRA debate come across as though NaRRA and its establishment of this authority would mean that certain things that are provided for in existing legislation would stop keep. And my short response to them would be no. The things that are provided for and legislated elsewhere still a keep, in as much as NaRRA is being established and will be keeping.
Senator Morgan, before you go, sir, there are Jamaicans listening to you tonight, and they are in communities affected by Melissa, and they may be wondering the tangibles for which NaRRA is to deliver to them. When would you say that these tangibles will be coming to their communities? There may be people too who have lost roofs and property and other things, and maybe have not seen the type of assistance that they should have seen this far. Speak to those people, Senator, about what the government can do, what the government is doing, and how long will they have to wait?
Just a quick editorial note. I want to make it expressly clear that my reference to both my colleague, Senator, and the moniker I attached to her is within the context of pointing to their political ideology and the political views to which they subscribe, as they are entitled to so subscribe. The folk have been referenced as left of center. I identify as right of center, and many of the policies of the Jamaica Labour Party that governs Jamaica at this time may be considered as being centrist, in terms of centrist in outlook, centrist in design, and impacting the Jamaican people by exhibiting compassion, even while being frugal and holding to the virtues of conservative values and fiscal discipline, which is what conservatism underscores and extols. In relation to people feeling, we're getting to the impact part. One of the things that we have to appreciate is that the end product is something that we will get to at an ultimate point in time. But long before we get to that, there is employment, for example, that will be generated in the construction phase and in the build-out phase of many of the projects that are being pursued by NaRRA, which is why at the heart of NaRRA is reconstruction and resilience building. So when Black River is being transformed, it will require personnel to do so. Machine operators, equipment operators, workers, and importantly, work being undertaken is a catalyst for many other sectors and fields of endeavor. So when work are gone, an enterprising Jamaican down in St. Elizabeth, Southwestern, can go to a wholesale, buy some wares, put it on a stall, and they are selling their wares to the workmen in the space. Whether it is beverages, man might want them dragon when them come off our site, or when they make them break time. Although we don't promote certain undesirable and unhealthy things, people buy cigarette because we're in a democracy, and a man may elect to draw some cigarette when they take a break from the work. And as I said before, that is not a healthy practice. We don't encourage that, but we know that in keeping with enterprise, that lady, in the same way people do when they go to a grave digging, or when they go to a setup, what we call dead yard, or when they go to a funeral and them have them stall on the outside, they must sell banana chips, they must sell bag juice, box drink, dragon, Guinness, you name it. And people are juggle them things. So when work are going on a site I keep, whether Black River, Lucy, Falmouth, or over in Portland, you name it, wherever, people are going to be able to sell them wares. The shops and businesses in the proximity to the project, they too will have a bounce in business, because the restaurant where they're in proximity to the site are going to sell them chicken and chips. Them are going to sell them tea and fried dumpling and, ackee or kalaloo morning time. These things will happen. The operators of public passenger transportation will come in for business, because to the extent that a person don't operate a private motor vehicle, it is a public passenger vehicle based on distance that will take people from point A to point B as they go to and from a site where they're working or where they are conducting business. So NaRRA and the projects to be undertaken, neighbor, will be a catalyst for many positive spin-offs, what we refer to in economics terms as spin-offs, because it will create jobs and it will provide economic opportunities both directly and indirectly. And when all is said and done, NaRRA, to the extent that it will be impacting housing and other public infrastructure and such things as even energy, including clean energy, the whole raft of things, because I'm just going to enumerate for your listeners, for the viewers, the kinds of things that NaRRA will be touching on. So the NaRRA projects are set out in clause 25.2. The NaRRA projects will concern and involve energy infrastructure, which includes, as I said just now, renewable energy generation, transmission and storage. It will also include digital infrastructure and telecommunications, logistics, air and seaports, water, sewage and desalination.
Yes.
It may also include low-income housing and urban development, because what NaRRA wants to do, NaRRA is going to be a vehicle through which government is seeking to better respond to neighbor and better cater to the housing demand and needs of the Jamaican people. Because as we know, we have made certain interventions as a government since taking office in March of 2016. We have made certain interventions by increasing the NHC ceiling time and again, the loan ceiling, both for individual borrowers or for joint borrowers. We have also sought to reduce the NHD interest rate. Indeed, for the lowest income earners in Jamaica, they do not pay an interest rate on their NHD. The rate is this, my brother. See there? Zero. Zin? So now, NaRRA will cater to housing build-out and development, because it is one of those activities provided for here, and it will be one of the opportunities available as well to the private sector to come in and undertake investment, because they will be benefiting from the acceleration in terms of speed with which NaRRA will secure approvals and enable them to execute the project and provide a return on their investment. And in the Jamaica Labour Party, neighbor, and in this government, we do not begrudge enterprise. We do not begrudge or envy people making a return on investment, because when a man take up his resources and take a risk, whether big or small, that person deserves to have a return on their investment, just like the lady who will learn of a site and she go down at the we call it the wholesale, go buy certain things in order to come and hopefully sell to the people who come to and from the site, whether she's selling phone card, whether she's selling banana chips, whether she's selling bun and cheese, or whether she had juggled some patty and she have a little warmer there. Zine, the fact is, enterprise is what this government encourages, and Jamaica is in good hands with the Andrew Holness-led Jamaica Labour Party.
Fantastic way to prove. Finally, before you go, Senator, one of the arguments the Prime Minister has consistently made is that Jamaica cannot approach Reconstruction with ordinary bureaucracy and fragmented coordination, especially given the scale of the challenges the country now faces. From your vantage point, Senator Morgan, why do you believe the Prime Minister is uniquely positioned to lead a reconstruction effort of this magnitude? And how does NaRRA strengthen the government's ability to execute his vision effectively?
One of the things that people should note is that the Prime Minister has had the benefit and the distinction of holding office for the past 10 years. That gives you a certain outlook, a certain vantage point. The Prime Minister comes to the task with a certain perspective, a commendable command of the issues, and experience, first and foremost.
Yes.
And he's a man of vision. When you serve as head of government, you not only visit other parts of the world, you have available to you a raft of not just advisors, but persons who are well placed from a technical standpoint, who will impart to you perspectives,
Yes,
advice, and of course, case studies. And what the Prime Minister did, consequent on the passage of Hurricane Melissa, was to carefully consider the experiences of other countries in the past and determined what would suit Jamaica in this instance, following the passage of Hurricane Melissa and the devastation caused by Hurricane Melissa. And he has determined that establishing this entity is what is fit for purpose at this time, and what enables him and what sees him being well placed to do so is that he is a patriot at heart, a fine son of this country, a man who came from humble beginnings, so he understands and can identify with a person who is living in a board house, who is vulnerable. Because when the rain set up, and me not a fret because me live within the four walls of a concrete structure, there are other persons neighbor.
yes.
When them see the cloud get dark, them have to think about setting some pan. Remember, that is the reality of some of our Jamaican brothers and sisters. A man have to set some pan.
You are saying the Prime Minister understands this?
The man grew up in a board house, my general. You can't have it more in terms of perspective and the richness of that. You see my David? The man grew up in a board house, so he understands the vagaries of that and just the sheer dynamics of hailing from humble beginnings and applying yourself through hard work and enterprise, which is why I was able to relate to you what I related to you a while ago, meaning government's commitment and position in relation to fostering and encouraging people's enterprise. So if you hear of a 9-night a keep and you want to go down on the 9-night, go juggle your soup and corn, as long as you not offend the people who are keep the 9-night, you should be enterprising and go down at the 9-night, go juggle your soup and corn, because your corn we sell and your soup we sell, and you're going to go home with some money in your pocket to give your daughter her extra lesson money and her lunch money come Monday morning. That's what we are about. We are called the Labour Party, neighbor, because that's what we believe in. We believe in hard work, the diligent effort, and the enterprise of people. By your sweat, as the Prime Minister often says, shall you eat bread. And that's why we do what we do, while some others run up and down the place and are just mere miscreants and mischief makers on social media, seeking tops and roses in circumstances where they are not adding value. I'm delighted that your platform is a platform that adds value. And we too over here welcome lions, we welcome taps and roses and various other goodies. Yes? Absolutely. And we unapologetically welcome those things because we deserve the good things them and we like the good things them, but we don't just like it for ourselves. We like it for all the people of Jamaica, not those people who are seeking to tear down Jamaica. And it is our hope and indeed our appeal that the people who seek to do destructive things and the tear down Jamaica things shall depart from and turn away from their unprogressive and undesirable activities and ways. That's just our humble appeal.
Harry, final word to you.
Well, I won't add much to it, but I do look forward, Senator Morgan, to another time, another discussion, because it's a riveting one. It has brought a lot to the table and to the ears of the people of Jamaica, revealing things that, questions they may have asked but don't have the right sources, and we're happy to have had you tonight to give clarity, to also show transparency in governance, because you are part of the governing body. And we thank you for that. We look to see you coming in the future, as well as other members of the government, because the truth about it, because I'm a young man as well, and the finance minister spoke to the 20-year-olds, which should be maybe the defining group coming election, maybe 2029, 2030, whenever that is. And I get to have an understanding because of lack of civics within schools. A lot of persons don't understand governance. They don't understand the government structure. And as such, they don't even know what is being done in their benefit, you know, the opportunities being created and so on. So I'm happy for this opportunity for you to share those, not just what is there now, but what is to be unlocked by NaRRA and those to come further.
Yeah, man, respect. Thanks for that, Harry. And you can rest assured, my brother, that we are going to be sustaining our, you know, pressure on the gas pedal, the acceleration pedal in that regard.
Senator, thank you for your time. Nation building, you know, sir, is never without its challenges, but it's also about trust, communication, and delivery. And as you have often said, you told us in the general election to choose Jamaica.
Yes.
Know that many of us have chosen Jamaica. We now need to protect Jamaica. Eh?
Yes.
So
let's think about what things would have been like if the other people had won on September 3 and we were hit by Melissa, as we have been on 28th October. Oh, they would have been scrambling just to find them footing. They wouldn't know their head from their foot. I mean, God is good, yes?
Yeah, well, if you look
in good hands, and I want to just thank the people of Jamaica. We're not being cavalier or exhibiting bravado or arrogance. We are sincerely grateful for the people of Jamaica for listening to our platform. They would have taken note, neighbor, of our achievement document. Yes. They would have taken note of our manifesto, and they would have listened to our exhortations and our representation on the platform. The Prime Minister donning his 1 p.m. jacket and all, right? They would have taken what we were saying to them in account. For some, as is their democratic right, they didn't. And sadly, there were some who decided not to participate in the process. And I'm using this platform tonight to urge those who are not so inclined to participate in the political process to get involved and support and vote for the Jamaica Labour Party. We are the government of achievement and performance. We are the political party of vision and hard work, because it is not lip service and talking that will build this country up. And that is why, in closing, we have brought this bill, which really actualizes the vision expressed in the Prime Minister's contribution to the budget debate. It is this bill that is going to make the things set out in this a reality. And we want to have you and all Jamaicans on board as we restore our country and attain our great promise, because Jamaica deserves to step into her full potential and be that wonderful place of choice that she can be to live, work, raise families, do business, and retire in paradise. What good, neighbor? I shall return as a certain gentleman.
That shall return phrase is one that you should stay away from. Take care of yourself, man. And
respect.
Thanks to Zachary. And my moderator, Caroline, wants to tell you that she appreciates you very much. And,
yes,
and thank you so
very
much.
Well. Big up yourself, Caroline. Good.